Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of I Like to Read with me, your host, Rachel Polanski. Today, I am very, very excited to be joined by my former professor, Disney scholar extraordinaire, Sarah Nilsen. Sarah's the only professor that I've seen after I graduated. We did get to have lunch, I think, what was that, 3 years ago? 2 years ago?
Probably even more, I
A
think.
long time ago. So I took, I think, 4 classes with
Oh
you.
my
I took quite a
God.
few, but you were actually the reason I kind of majored in film and television, because I took your history of television class because I was minoring in it, and I was like one of the only freshmen in it, and we just did so much comprehensive, pop culture analysis and history, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. So then I ended up taking so many classes that I switched from the minor to a major, and I still majored in psych, so I was able to do both of
That's great.
them. And so your Disney expertise kind of, lies a little bit in the Disney and race and Disney and also American childhood. I know you've been in a documentary about Snow White, right? That came out a couple of
Mhm.
years ago, and then you're going to be in another upcoming documentary about the history of Mickey Mouse.
Yes.
And you have a bunch of books. So if you want to start off with sort of what your background and how you came to sort of find Disney as your path, and sort of what drew you to that, and then we can go from there.
Okay, great. So I was not originally a Disney was not my main area of interest when I was in grad school. So I'm not like a major Disney fan going into Disney studies, but I ended up doing my dissertation at USC, so out in LA, on world fairs and
Oh yeah.
cultural diplomacy and films that were produced by the US government as part of what they call soft power. So basically, American propaganda that was being shown abroad. And world's fairs were these big events paid for by mostly taxpayers' money to create these events for propaganda. And I did research on the 1958 Brussels World's Fair. And one of the most popular films there was actually a Disney film,
Oh,
which
I
was
didn't know that.
called The USA in Circarama, which was a 360-degree theater where you would
Oh, very cool.
stand in the center and then there were images projected on the outside.
So
So
sort of
you,
like an Omni theater, sort like a new.
yeah, the park still has it. So the O Canada exhibit in Epcot, which you've
Oh, I
probably
don't think
been.
I don't think I've been in
Oh, you
that one,
haven't been to
actually. No,
that
I,
one?
I mean I've
Okay,
been
so
to
that's
Epcot, I've been to Canada, but I haven't been to their exhibit there.
well, that's the sort of same idea. So they continued to use it, but they did one for the US that was basically a tour of the USA.
Oh, very cool.
And it was shot from a bomber pilot from an actual film camera and took you across the country. And so that's what really got me interested. And then I did research about that film and got into all the original records about it at the National Archives, and it was all from the Disney company. And that was really sort of my introduction into Disney, a whole different side of Disney than I think
Right.
most people recognize. And so my interest has been really historically what's been the significance of Disney culture on all parts of our society. In many ways, things we're not interested in. So since then, I've been interested also in the Disney nature documentaries, the True Life Adventures, which were produced in the 50s and 60s. And many people credit with creating the modern environmental movement. And
Oh,
so I've been doing research on that. And I went out to Alaska 2 years ago.
oh, very
Much
cool.
of the footage was shot by naturalists, so not by Disney people. They were shot as independent contractors. And there were two couples that did almost all the shooting, married couples, the Malots and the Chryslers. And there's very little written about any of these people. And so I've been doing research on them, which is a pretty massive project, actually, in the end, because they produced a whole series of these shorts that ended up winning a whole series of
Oh,
Academy Awards.
and this was
And
in the
people have written
50s?
about them, but they actually haven't tracked that much of the history of these two couples out shooting. And they were older. They were like middle-aged into their 60s when they were doing a lot of the work. So I went to Alaska because the Chryslers and the Malots both shot in Alaska, and their archives are there.
In
And
Alaska, wow.
yeah, so it's amazing. And the Chryslers especially were older. In their 60s, they went and lived in the Brooks Range over the winter with nothing, basically. They set up this little plywood tent in the middle of nowhere, way out, so way northern Alaska, and shot over the winter elk migrations, caribou, wolves, and really like remarkable
Yeah, because
shooting.
I
And they
haven't
were
heard
getting
anything about
paid
that. Yeah.
nothing. I mean, that's the thing. They were contracted out, so they basically were being paid by footage, and they had no input into terms of editing. So they would send all their footage to the
Just what
Walt Disney
everything that they
Company.
had, and then they didn't have any control after that.
Yes, and then Disney would add the soundtrack and the narration and the
Mm.
editing. But for them, it wasn't, I mean, they were really outdoorsy people that were interested in naturalism, and then their footage would come in. And those films are did you ever see any of
No,
those?
I
Like The
think I
Living Desert, The Vanishing Prairie,
were they in like the 1950s they were released, you said?
50s and 60s. The White Wilderness is probably the most well known of them. But there's a scene in there that was actually staged where they shot lemmings off of a record player to
Oh, really?
sort of because of the myth that lemmings would commit suicide and jump off of cliffs. I don't even know if you know what a lemming
No,
is.
I know what a lemming is, but I don't know about the myth.
There's a myth that lemmings would commit suicide if they were basically starving. They would all jump off as a mass and
Oh.
kill themselves, which is not true. So Disney decided to stage a mass, but it
Oh,
wasn't Disney. It was these independent filmmakers
but
hired by
because
Disney that shot this footage and then sent it to the company to be edited. So many
fascinating.
people have commented on that film as being staged, but most nature documentaries are staged.
Right.
Part of the conversation is also more broadly, how are these documentaries shot? So I've been doing stuff, but I'm really interested in those nature documentary films, and I've been doing more research about animal studies and Disney. So I wrote a recent article about Zootopia
Oh, okay.
and images of animals and race in Zootopia and predators and prey in Zootopia. So that's
I like
been,
Zootopia. I think it's one of the
yeah, no,
better
it's a
ones.
great film to talk about. There's definitely a lot to talk about in terms of Zootopia. And I just am working on a kid's story right now about Walt Disney's childhood in
Marceline,
Marceline,
right?
Missouri, which was sort of only 4 years of his life, but he considers kind of formative for his
Because he
life.
was born in Chicago, right? And then he moved to Marceline when he was
Yes,
very young.
he was about four and stayed through about 4 years of his
And that's
life.
what Main Street is. I always remember because
Yes,
I've been a couple times since our classes, and
yes.
I always, Main Street. I remember that's one of the big things that's like modeled after his childhood in
Absolutely. And
Marceline.
Lady and the Tramp is really a sort of a nostalgic rebuilding of that town. So it was
Okay.
also, the film itself was set up to be sort of a memorial to the town. So Marceline, though, I've been trying to do a more like woke history. So it has discussions of issues of race in
In the
Missouri.
children's book.
Yeah, in a children's book. So I'm trying. It has like two tracks. It has historical content, and then it has more like a children's narrative about his life, and it's based on actual historical documentation of his time period there. So, for example, like Peter Pan, the touring Peter Pan came through there, which was
Oh, and that's how
starring
he kind of.
Maud Adams, who was the first the playwright picked her to be
Oh,
Peter Pan.
wow.
It was a woman, and she was also supposedly a lesbian. So she was, which
Wow,
we didn't think
a
about.
lesbian
Yes,
Peter Pan, and there, yeah, that's pretty.
touring with Peter Pan, and he loved that. So it was like a huge influence. He ended up being in a high school production of Peter Pan, playing Peter Pan,
Oh, I had no
and
idea.
then so it led to Peter Pan,
So
and
that
then
was
he
always his kind of first. I mean,
yes,
Peter
so a
Pan's
lot
not
of
true.
his first stuff, his first film he saw there, which was supposedly the life of Christ, which was there's many lives of Christ that came out at the
Right, we
period,
don't
so
know
I'm not
exactly
sure
which
which one
one
it
it is.
is. But this we're talking Nickelodeon period, so we're talking really early, like
Right,
1907, 1906, and Wild Bill, Buffalo Bill,
right.
who
He
came
liked that.
through,
Yeah,
and he had an encounter with
Frontierland.
him. And in the book, I talk about how he was called Wild Bill, Buffalo Bill, because he had slaughtered so many buffalo to make way for the trains, because their purpose was to
Oh,
starve all the Native Americans so they could build trains across the country. So that
see,
was
I
his.
learned something new every time I talk to you. Like I had no
Yeah,
idea that.
you know me with animal history. So if I could get buffaloes together with Disney, we about have it all that I need.
I mean, because there's really not. I mean, there is a decent amount of stuff on his childhood and on his background, but there's the animal component, especially because animals are so prevalent in all of the Disney films, whether
Absolutely.
they're live action or cartoon. I mean, Snow White, his first film, the animals play such an integral part in that, and it continues.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's something we really, we kind of just accept as sort of that's part of Disney, and that's what. But I mean, to have animals as main characters and to have them
And he
be
credits those times he spent in Marceline on the farm as really responsible for
right.
creating a love of animals for him because he had been an urban kid. I mean, he really grew up in cities his entire life, except for this short period. Because after this, he moves back to Kansas City. Then he
And
goes to
he stays in
Paris
the
for World
cities
War
for, yeah.
One, and then he goes to LA. So it's really sort of his little block of time there. He has all these great encounters. Like he's really good at riding the backs of pigs because they had pigs. So his dad would have him come out and he'd ride on
Was
these big.
Elias Disney, that's his dad's name,
Yes,
right?
his name was Elias, who was very strict and very stern and had little patience for that kind of behavior. But he was young. I mean, he was still young enough that he didn't have to do as much work on the
Right,
farm.
so he had time to kind of daydream and absorb
Yes.
the world without just being worked to the bone.
And they had a big horse, Charlie, that he was very close with that the kids would ride on. So there were all these like just encounters he had with animals on the farm. And then he had a little puppy that came and visited him for a while and would pull on his socks. I mean, he tells stories about all this. And then the puppy ran off, and that was the end of his little
You
puppy.
wonder how much of those are like real stories or just like
Yes, he kept going
anecdotes.
back, actually. He went back to Marceline multiple times
So
with
they're
his
not just
mother.
anecdotes that he made
It's
up, or
hard to tell. A lot of it, I think, is between,
well,
what
yeah,
he's built
between
up
fact
over
and fiction.
time,
Yeah.
nostalgia, what was based on reality. The town is real. The town's interesting because the town
Have you
was,
been there?
no, I haven't been. It's between Chicago and Kansas City. It was named after a railroad,
Right.
one of the owners of the railroad, and it was meant as like a midway point for the train to stop. So it was completely artificially
Flyover town. It
constructed.
wasn't, yeah, it wasn't really
Yes,
built
but then
up.
the trains would bring all this stuff in. So the trains really became, I mean, Disney, like the park has the train
Right, the
around it.
monorail.
Disney had a small train in his backyard. I mean,
Oh, he
Disney
had one in his
loved trains.
backyard.
Yes.
Wow.
And his uncle was a train conductor. So his uncle, when he would come through town, would get off the train and visit.
Well, that's why
Disney has
like the entrance is sort of modeled after a train station, at least in the
absolutely.
Magic Kingdom, right? Yeah.
Yes. So trains, it was definitely a town around the train, and he loved being with the trains, and people would come and visit. And he had this uncle that was sort of had a learning disability of some form and really wandered like a hobo around the whole country. And people think he created Dopey out of Snow White based on his uncle. I think it was Uncle Ed, who he really loved, but would come and play with them. So he would get off
More of like a
as a
childlike,
hobo,
yeah.
visit the family. They'd go wander around and play, and then he'd just get on the train and go again. So thinking too of like the Peter Pan idea,
Yeah.
never growing up, always going. So Marceline has a ton of stuff was going on that's of interest and sort of
Yeah, and a
defining
lot of
who
people,
Disney
I
was.
mean, again, like they touch the surface and they sort of talk about it as foundational, but I think that
Yes,
there's so much to those 4 years that's, I mean, clear in the parks and the development, but also just his mindset that permeates through everything. And I know that, we learned, I took Disney and American Childhood with
yes.
you. I took History of Animation, so I learned a lot about. So we learned about the beginnings of Disney through that, but we also learned about like Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers, and we learned about, I mean, there was like so much that
Yes.
I revisit stuff now and I'm like, oh, I kind of know that. I don't know if you're familiar. There's a YouTube channel I've started watching recently called Defunct Land. And it's a guy who he looks at all these defunct theme park attractions, mostly Disney, but he also does some Universal. So he talks about like even like Pleasure Island and like the way that the nightclubs fell. He talks about video, whatever that club was that the kids used to go to, like in the 80s. He talks about, so the one that I'm really interested in that I want to talk to you about is, of course, at Splash Mountain and
Oh,
the South,
oh,
because I
cool.
had no idea that I watched his video. So it used to be Tales of the Okefenokee was, I don't know if it was, so it was a ride at Six Flags before it was a ride at
Oh,
Disneyland.
I didn't know that.
So
So it
yeah, there's a
wasn't
whole
originally
thing. So
Disney
it's
land?
Six Flags had this Confederate land in the South in the
Oh my
1960s,
God.
and so so it's inspired by the Uncle Remus tales,
Yeah.
and they had the same sort of story, but it was literally called Tales of the Okefenokee, like welcome to the South, welcome to the plantation, and they had the similar, they
Welcome
had
to
the
the swamp. Okefenokee a swamp.
Okay, well, but they called it was like welcome to the South. Like this is it was
Okay, that's
very
wild.
clear that it was like a plantation, and
Oh my
so
God.
that was there for I think like 20 years. No, it closed in 1980, and then they took the idea and then they opened it in Disney. So they took some of like I think that closed, and then they brought it to Disney. It was Michael Eisner who created Splash Mountain, right?
Is
maybe.
that that time
I think
period?
it was, yeah, I think it was Eisner. And I just find it fascinating. So my boyfriend and I went in February. We rode Splash Mountain,
Yeah.
and it's crazy because, like, all of the rides are so specifically tied into some sort of movie franchise, whether that's sort of a present day one or one from the past. And Disney clearly, tries to hide Song of the South,
Yes.
despite the fact that they released it like 5 or 6 times before they find,
I
and
mean,
like
that's why, well, like the parks are set up, they're called a theme park because the
right.
attractions are really meant to be a narrative, like a story
Right,
that
exactly.
you
And so this
enter
one has
into.
the story of, your Brer Rabbit and all,
Sorry.
all those guys. No problem. And I just think it's crazy because, there's no gift shop for that one, obviously. There's no sort of like, I mean, there's still the animal characters, but there's no sort of like zippity doo dah. I forget Uncle
Yes.
Remus because Uncle Remus is a live action character from the first film. And then they kind of turn him into like a bear or something in the ride. I don't know. So they kind of eliminate the people from the ride and it just becomes a sort of animal fun ride. And especially for younger children, if you're not familiar with the film, you're just like, oh, this is a fun ride. And it's
Yes.
very fascinating how I'm wondering, like Gone with the Wind, they took it off HBO Max for a little bit and then they put it back with a sort of disclaimer that like,
Yep.
this is, because it's important for us to look at our past mistakes and our past history mistakes. And I'm
Yes.
just interested to hear your take on it and sort of why. I know that they're now turning it into the Princess and the Frog ride, but
Yes.
why it sort of lasted this long while being this sort of thing that we don't talk about, but it's also notoriously one of Disney's most famous rides. And the fact that it doesn't have that sort of gift shop consumerism aspect to it, but is still notably like a big attraction in the park and has been for 30 plus years. Sort of, your take on that.
I think part of the issue with the being the biggest media company in the world, Disney wants to offend nobody.
Right.
So to be a successful corporation, you really have to start there. And their image has always been, family entertainment, positive family entertainment, mainstream American values. And I think an error for the company and sort of our error as a country is we seem incapable of looking back to history to understand
Yes.
where we are today. And I have had encounters, I think I probably mentioned in class. I was in the PBS documentary about Walt Disney, and they had a premiere this at the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco, and several Walt Disney's grandchildren were there. And I had said to them, they were very upset that the film talked critically of Disney, of Walt Disney. And I was like, Walt Disney represents the culture that he inhabited. It wasn't like Walt Disney was uniquely a racist and
I
the
know
rest of
he was just
America
a product
wasn't.
of that time, and we
Yes,
can't
or it wasn't
deny that.
uniquely sexist, and
Right.
and everybody else wasn't. He was an embodiment of
Everyone
the.
always says he's very anti-Semitic, and I'm like, I don't. I know that that's one big myth that you like to dispel because it's kind of he himself was not very anti-Semitic. He was part of a larger
Yes, and we
anti-Semitic
want much
culture.
more to blame the individual and not talk
Right.
about the society. So my argument with them at that point was that the company should speak openly about the values of our society at that
I
period.
think
So
that's what bothers me about Splash Mountain is sort of
yes,
the weird
talk about the
erasure.
history of it.
Right, talk about the history, have some information in the ride. This movie came out in this, and Jim Crow, because it was written
Because
by.
there's a lot though, I mean, the Uncle Remus tales are oral tales that were collected. They're very comparable to folk tales.
They're from slave
Yes,
history, but
they're
they were
oral
originally
tales that were
written by a
collected.
white man,
Yes,
Thomas something, and
and they
then
were
that.
also hugely well read by everybody. So
Right.
it wasn't like Disney happened to find the Uncle Remus tales. Everybody in the country was reading the Uncle Remus tales. They understood the references to it. And by the time, part of the issue also is that he was very late in producing Song of the South. So he had originally planned to do the film in the 30s, like when Gone with the Wind was coming out. It was during the height of the plantation genre.
Right, it
So
was a little bit after.
Shirley
He did
Temple did.
Three Caballeros first because that was the first live action
Yes, so
crossover, and then this was
this
the
was
second one.
almost supposed to happen much earlier, but because of the strike at the studio, he basically delayed the release of Song in the South, and by the time it came out, it was really out of date. It was retro
But
by that
people
time.
loved it. And I think people loved
It
it up
was
until the
split. I mean, it was
1980s.
definitely attacked. I know I actually went to college. One of my professors at undergrad was the writer
Oh my
on Song
gosh,
in the South,
really?
Roy Rapp,
That's crazy.
who was brought in. He was a very well-known leftist. He was brought in by the studio to sort of balance out concerns about racial representation in the.
Hmm.
And so the studio was aware of sort of the racial issues with the film. And the NAACP was involved in conversations. It wasn't like it was being done, hidden in some
Right.
box somewhere. Like they actually, the studio went out, tried to get input, but it was really the material was dated. And Maury Raff at the time said there's serious problems with this. We sort of, as a society, have moved beyond this because of the war. It wasn't this conversation had changed.
Right.
And Walt Disney was not able to like move beyond. He tried to accommodate it. He didn't really understand the criticism. But I think part of it is, I mean, this is sort of my childhood thing. He was brought up in a society in Missouri, which was Jim Crow America.
Right.
Missouri had like the second highest lynchings in this country. I mean, he was alive when lynchings were widespread and common in this country. We might want to deny that happened,
Right.
but
But
that
no,
was
it was
the
very much a
reality
part of
that
American
he grew up.
history.
That's all of America. It wasn't just Missouri.
Right. It was
And
everywhere.
so, everyone read Uncle Remus. Like there's in the Mickey Mouse documentary, there's a Mickey Mouse short that's based on Uncle Tom's Cabin, which is people
Oh.
consider fairly a notorious
Yeah,
racist
there's the best example is
short.
when it's in The King and I, which is fascinating. They do a whole Uncle Tom's Cabin ballet in Siam in the musical.
This is sort of similar to this Mickey short because they're staging like a production of
Right,
Uncle
that's what it's like.
Cabin. But the problem is Uncle Tom's Cabin was probably better known than like the Bible in the US.
Yep.
Everybody read Uncle Tom's Cabin. It was a well-known popular cultural medium. And so we now look at that and we're like appalled. But the thing is, at the time he was producing it, that would be comparable to like, a popular book we all understood and recognized. And you can see when you watch it, he's speaking to an audience that completely knows the material. He's
Right.
making references to something. And it's also, Uncle Tom's Cabin was an abolitionist text. It was
Right.
an
Harriet Beecher Stowe was
anti-slavery
an
text.
abolitionist herself. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's so much more complicated than just saying, he made this racist film
Right.
that was easily condemned and now it's racist. But
And
the
no one
problem
talks
is the
about it.
company needs
Or
to, I think, needs to say, okay, look at the film. This is what the film is.
it's
This
a
is what Uncle
historical
Remus
artifact,
says.
honestly, that it's
Yes,
part of the company's history and is now part of the park's
absolutely.
history as well.
And this is what America looked at it like at the period. This is what race relations look like at the
It's
period.
also for being, I mean, a live action, like just as a textual piece, regardless of the storyline. I mean, the live action and the animation combination was
Absolutely.
very high tech for the time
Oh,
and very
absolutely.
well done.
And the Uncle Remus, the animated parts are actually considered still
That's
the holy
what people
grail.
say. The animated parts
Yes,
are sort of the best parts of the film. And I think that's what they sort of tried to capture with the ride with Splash Mountain. I just think, again, it's like you go there and there's no sort of like theming beyond like, I mean, for so many younger children, it's like
the
they probably have
company I
no
think
idea
for
what this.
years has struggled with this.
Well,
So the
that's what they're
company is
turning it into
very
the Princess
conscious
and the
of the
Fry, the Frog, I think. But I
yes,
still think that's, I mean, that might be the right move, but that doesn't deny the fact that Splash Mountain again is like the one of the biggest sort of touchstones of the park. And then if we're just gonna,
absolutely.
even if we're gonna change it, we still need to have some sort of acknowledgement. Maybe they add something to like the Hall of Presidents. They add like a Song of
I
the South.
think
I mean,
so.
some sort of little film or whatever, because it's also, I mean, the Zippity Doodah is like that used to be their song, right? Up
Absolutely.
until then, people were like, maybe not. But that was like the song of the company. Like that's not a small feat. And then
But
people,
again, as a company, how do you defend, how do you
I know
offend the
it's
least
hard.
number of people? So
Well,
what do you do?
you
And
would,
I just don't think at this point, though, there's any hardcore fans that are going to die if Splash Mountain gets changed. I mean, I think part of the,
or you
I
should.
hope, by this time period, there's at least enough recognition. We're taking down our Confederate
Right.
monument. Like
I don't
the
want them to
Disney
erase
companies
it.
understood that, in this cultural moment, that content is no longer
Right.
allowed.
I think it's, yeah, I just don't want them to erase it. Like, I still want them to acknowledge it, though, to be like, this was a big part of our history. Splash
That
Mountain
would be
was a big
great.
ride, but I don't know
Yes,
if they will. And it's a shame. I mean, because it's, again, like, there's no Brer Rabbit plush or anything.
I agree.
And there's, I mean, I also, and the ride itself, when we went on it, I was soaked. I was wet for like 2 hours after. So that alone I'm like, the ride isn't even that fun anymore. It's like, you literally get so wet.
Is
Regardless,
that
but
right? Did they change the actual
I don't know if it whatever it was, but like we didn't buy ponchos, which might have been the first mistake. But like I was
I don't
soaked
remember
wet.
it being that you get
I
benched.
don't know. Maybe just the way that
Maybe
it,
it's changed.
maybe it's changed. But I was like annoyed. And
You
like
know,
I
that is
love thrill
annoying.
rides, but I'm like, that's the other thing too, is like this is going to be my memory of the ride, that I'm just going to be like, fortunately my boyfriend like bought a sweatshirt, so I just
Oh,
changed into
good.
that. But I was like, I was literally soaking wet for 2 hours, and that was not fun. And
I just think the company too, though, really wants to be politically correct. So it always wants to do something that's, going to be okay, or sort of, it's not going to push anybody in a direction that they're not, open and willing to. And if many of your visitors sort of middle class Americans,
I
how
don't really
many of them want to go to
know.
Disney World and be confronted with the fact that, there were lynchings in this country and Jim Crow and
Right. Well,
slaves
because they
and
don't talk about any of that, and sort of, I mean, the Epcot has that, World's Fair, and it sort of puts the best foot forward of every
yes,
country. And I think that's a little bit different though, because again, it is that World's Fair, sort of like we're showcasing the best of our country, and we don't need to talk about the genocides that have happened in various
yes.
countries. But again, that's different, because that you're kind of going into it knowing what it is. And then again, with just this attraction, it's really like, I really hope they put up
Well,
some
one's
sort of
fictional, one's so
plaque or something. Yeah.
one's based on a fictional narrative, and the other Epcot's meant to be a literally, nonfiction, real. This
Right,
is
but at this point, I mean, I don't know how much they've updated a lot of the stuff, but it's like, they just
no,
show
it's retro.
it's very retro. And I think, but
Yeah.
then again, that's different because you know what you're going. It sort of represents a 60s
Yes,
World Fair type thing. But when you're going to the parks, I mean, you recognize that not all of the attractions are based on things that are contemporary, but they have kept up this sort of, okay, well, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea doesn't fit the theme, we have to update it to Finding Nemo. Like they have
yes.
kept updating things. And so
Well, the
it's just,
Hall of the Presidents is going to be definitely an issue. I mean, you've
yeah,
got
that's, are we going to put Trump in
about
the
that.
hall of president? I mean, they
Yes,
have to, and it's going to
yeah.
be, um,
Putting
before,
Trump up there is going to be difficult.
but they
You,
have to. He was an
yes.
American president. I mean, that's the other thing too. That's going to be very fascinating. I
And
didn't.
that should be revisited too, though. I think
Yeah,
eventually
the
it's
Hall
going
of
to need
Presidents
to
in
be
general is
revisited.
very dated. I
Yeah,
think when we went, no, it was something. The Haunted Mansion was closed when we went in February, and they were redoing the Haunted Mansion. That's my favorite ride.
yeah,
I'm
that's a
sorry
great one.
about that. And before we bring on our guests, there's one other attraction in the defunct land that really was fascinating: the America Sings attraction. Um,
Oh,
that one I didn't know. So somebody actually died in that
no, tell me that.
attraction.
Tell me.
So America Sings, it was based on the Carousel of Progress, and it had different creatures who, but instead of rotating clockwise, it rotated counterclockwise. So she was like stuck in between the wall, and then she died accidentally.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
that was only open for a few years, but then they took some of the animatronics, and I think they actually put them in Splash Mountain because they had like geese and birds and stuff. And so they have all
What
these just,
was the theme? Was it based on the nature films?
no, it was America. It was like showcasing American culture, and like it just had these birds like sing. Let me America
But it
Disney.
was based on the Carousel of
It was
Progress
it was the same
also?
sort of the
The
same sort of,
spinning four
yes.
different
They were singing periods from America's
dioramas.
history. So it was like a tour through America, which was problematic in itself because it had a lot of Confederate
What
dated
year
ideas.
is that?
This was in 1974 to 1988.
So it was a bicentennial. It
Yeah.
sounds like a
So
bicentennial.
I'll send you this defunct land stuff
That's
after,
great.
because it's like 15-minute videos that are so fascinating.
That's great. Yeah, no, I'll definitely have to look at that. That's
Yes.
excellent.
Yes. And okay, our guests will be joining us in 1 second. There's two guests.
Oh my.
Um,
Very
they both
exciting.
wanted to, as soon as I told them I was recording with you, they wanted
That
to
is wonderful.
jump on. And yeah, that's another thing I have to credit UVM for is, I met actually both of our guests in Michael Talbot, who was like a visiting professor for one semester or something. We took
And
a
he's at
Latin,
Castleton now. He's a
right,
director
right,
of the
right.
program at
We
Castleton.
took his Latin American cinema class, and it was like such a weird, the class had like, the things that we talked about were fascinating. Like some of the films were fantastic. I didn't know anything about Latin American cinema, but our class, the energy was just like a bunch of people who I don't think really like knew what they were doing. Either they just took it
Well, that's
randomly or something. And it was like, he literally was like, you guys don't talk. Like he had to pull teeth out of us to get us to talk. And that's how I mean, I'm lucky because I met two of my very good friends in that
that's
class,
great.
but it was such a different dynamic than some of the other classes where it was like he literally had to pull teeth to get
Oh,
us
that's
to
too
talk.
bad. He's the sweetest guy
I know
ever.
he's a
Yeah,
great
just a
guy. I
great
think it was
one.
just the energy. That's what it's too. The energy of the class, like our Disney American childhood class, like that was my favorite thing. It was just 3 hours every Friday, and it was so fun.
Well, it's always
And
good to talk about childhood and
I know
bringing
childhood, and
together
also
like
it really, I mean, for being a senior seminar, for like I learned a lot. but also it was fun. Like it didn't feel like too
Well, remember we
heavy.
had to design an attraction
Yes,
at
yes,
the
we designed our I'll wait for
within
they,
the.
they should be joining us in a sec, but we'll talk about it with them because they were both
That's
in my
great.
group.
Okay.
They were both in my group. But actually there was a thing, not Disney Quest, but something like that where they had like sort of a pop-up Disney attractions that they brought to like Chicago and Philadelphia, sort of like a Discovery Zone type thing, but for
Who
Disney.
was what you're saying?
That was
Disney?
in the 90s. Yeah, Disney. It was like they
Oh,
capitalized off the Discovery Zone. And so
and
that
they
was
set
kind
up
of,
these sort of
it was called Club
temporary.
Disney. And so they brought it to sort of like malls and stuff. And it was set up to be like, here's a traveling like Hercules, a jungle gym or whatever. And it was like
It's
in the
sort of like
mall.
ESPN, I think, was
Yeah,
doing the
sort of
same
like
sort
that.
of thing. Yeah.
um and that kind of stuff went defunct though within like 10, because it's interesting to have all these Disney properties. They also had Disney Quest, which is, I don't know if it's
Yeah.
still in downtown Disney, but they built one in Chicago and that failed miserably because there was something, the difference between it being sort of like it's part of downtown Disney and it's part of the Disney culture, and then when they were talking about, they put it in the middle of the city of Chicago, and it just
Mm.
totally didn't fit, and it was like very different to like have this obscure large Disney building that's doesn't, you have to cultivate the brand, and it's interesting how they've had all these
With this
endeavors.
digital media, though, has completely
Well,
surpassed
totally, that's what's it's
everything
they failed miserably
experiential.
in the Michael Eisner years, but now they've been doing really great with their development. Yeah, Disney Plus, who Ricky Strauss,
Yes.
one of our alumni, helps
Mhm.
create. I mean, Disney Plus has, I think, the most successful streaming service, and they have like 70 million
70
people or so.
million.
Yeah, which is, I mean, I really like The Mandalorian. I think that is a fantastic
And
show
they're
that
putting
they've.
a lot of classic Disney
Right, which is
properties
great.
on.
So they're having people
Yes.
revisit, you're able to revisit. Do they have those nature things on it? Do
The
they have
nature
the nature?
documentaries, they are. There's a whole Disney, because they now do Disney Nature new ones.
Right. I've seen that they've
So
been doing
they're
new
the
ones.
new ones. I think the True Life Adventures are on there.
That
I
the
keep
people
waiting to
did that
get a
you
job so
researched.
I can introduce each of them. Can you? That's really what I'd like to do, is get
That would
on
be, you want to be like the
every.
Leonard of
Yeah.
the Disney Imagineer videos. You can be, hi, I'm Sarah Nielsen.
Yes, that's exactly what I want to
I
do.
saw there's also that guy who had like the earring who was in a bunch of stuff. He is a famous Imagineer. I forget his name, but he's
No. What is
retiring
this? Oh,
actually.
you saw this on Disney Plus?
In some of the things that we watched in your class, there was a guy who was an Imagineer who like had a crazy like earring. I
Oh, I
let
don't
me and
remember
he's
that.
retiring, and it just showed up on my thing. Let me see,
Oh,
Disney.
is that right? Who
Yeah,
is
it's Disney Imagineer earring.
that?
It's Joe Road.
Okay.
He was the executive designer and vice president of creative, and he has like this
You
crazy.
went on the Disney trip, Disney
I
World
did,
trip.
yes, I did go on the Disney
And
World.
did we did the back behind the scenes tour?
Yes, we did
So we
the
saw the
animal.
whole
We saw
Imagineer
the
crew.
Animal Kingdom. We did Magic Kingdom. We went like underground and we saw the different
Yes.
animals. And then we did Animal Kingdom behind the scenes too. And there was one, I think, not maybe it was Hall of Presidents. I think
No, it was in
something in
Epcot
America,
where we saw
something in
where the.
Epcot where we got to see behind. Was that
Yes.
just the America exhibit
Yes.
that we got to see behind the
Which
scenes?
was very retro
That
too.
was amazing.
Bizarre.
That was such a
Yes.
fun trip. I was like, I can get class credit for this.
And
And it was just so cool because we got to like explore everything, and we got to get that behind the scenes look. Okay, here's one of our
here's Lucy.
guests,
I see that.
and Sean will be joining
Oh, that's
shortly.
great.
Lizzie, are you, oh, your video?
I'm here. Hold on, wait.
Okay.
Where is
Video?
Yeah, video. This is a video show too.
Okay.
Lizzie's in New
I
York.
am so specifically bad at Zoom. This is like the
Okay, wait,
hardest
ask
thing
to
for me to
start
figure out.
video. I just asked you to
Okay,
start your video.
okay, got it.
Technology.
Uh-oh, you're still off, Lizzie.
Oh my god. Oh, there we go. There we go. Hold on.
I think it's loading. It's black. Do you have your camera on?
I do. It's
Oh, there
there it
we
is.
go.
There you are.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
You knew how to zoom out your background, how to get that out.
No, she just, I think, is sitting in front of a plane.
Oh, are you? You don't have anything? Okay.
I was trying to
Hi.
help Sarah do a virtual background, but we couldn't figure it out.
Oh, this would be perfect. This is a plain blank wall. I could put
That's
anything
perfect.
here.
That looks great.
Also,
should put
she has a kids town thing, so
Yes, I have a
it
kids
kind of
town,
works.
which is now
I was
defunct.
just gonna
That's another
say I
thing.
should find something Disney related to put behind me.
I should have put
I know that's why
something.
I did my hair
That's
like Mickey
very good.
Mouse ears. I was gonna wear them. I
Oh,
actually
I
have
was
Mickey Mouse
wondering
ears.
why that was the choice. I like
No,
it.
it's I like the 90s hairstyle
I
anyways.
like it too.
When's the last
All
time
right.
you did not go on our trip to Disney World? So
No.
No.
have you been to Disney World?
I have a feeling I've only been
So you've never been?
no. I grew up close to Disneyland.
Okay, so you went when you were
So
younger.
I went to Disneyland a lot, and then I did go when I was 15 and 16. I went to Florida with Becca's family, my friend, and did Harry Potter World is in Disney World, right?
No, that's Universal. Totally different.
Oh my God, guys. Ugh, I should have prepared for this. Okay, wait.
Hi,
Sean,
Sean.
this is so wonderful to have all of you
That
guys
is
on the
I
same
have done
screen.
both, though. I did do Disney World once then. Just
Okay,
once.
so just when you were younger.
This is clearly a family.
I think I was probably 14 or
This is a
15.
show.
We'll cut it out.
And
And
Splash Mountain was my favorite.
we were just talking about Splash
Oh.
Mountain because it's related to the super problematic
Yeah.
Grad night
stuff.
for high school? Did you go to the
Is-
Disneyland for grad night in high school?
No.
You were living on the East Coast at that point.
No, you didn't go to high
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was only in California for like the first 6 years, and then I was on the East Coast.
'Cause in the high schools they take you.
Is Songs of the South in Splash Mountain?
Yes, that's what it's based on. We were just
That's
talking
what it is?
about that, and
Yeah.
it's super problematic, and Disney just doesn't acknowledge it. So listen to the first half of the episode if you're just joining us now for the background on
And I
that.
will too.
And then we also have Sean, who for the listeners who don't know Sean and Lizzie, they are two of my dearest friends that I met at UVM in our Latin American cinema class. And I was just telling Sarah that it was like
And they were in my
awkward.
Disney class.
Yes, in your Disney class. But the Latin American cinema class was one of the most awkward classes. Just the people in that class did not want to talk. So yes, we all.
Oh yeah, he hated us. He was not happy.
Yeah, it was like pulling teeth. And so Sean and Lizzie and I all took your Disney and American Childhood seminar, and we did a lawn attraction for our traveling exhibition. We did like a obstacle course. That was our.
Sean, where are you?
I'm in LA right now. So I'm
Oh my God, Sean, I just saw you. Wait. Sorry, Rachel, you can edit this out. How do I get it so that I see everyone no matter
You got to do a gallery view. Gallery view.
View.
So you probably have speaker view on. You want gallery view on the top
Speaker.
right.
Top right. Top right. What am I not seeing?
Anyways,
I'll figure this out.
We'll edit this out. Yeah, Sean in LA with me.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm hunkered down in the city with Rachel, and we've done a few socially distanced hikes and such.
And Sean dropped
decided.
off my Thanksgiving food because I couldn't go anywhere. So
yeah,
Sean, that apartment looks great.
Oh, thank you.
It's a very nice apartment.
I have that exact same oscillating fan in my room.
Oh,
So I was Sarah and I we were just kind of talking about sort of like defunct Disneyland attractions and things that used to be there and are no longer part of there. Like I don't know if you guys know, there was something called America Sings, and a girl was literally crushed in between the walls at Disneyland. And there's a couple of other deaths. Like there were some shooting, like they used to have like a whole nightclub scene, and especially in the 80s when the gang scenes were prevalent, there was like some shootings in the parking lot, and also like Knott's Berry Farm had competing gang like clubs. It was the whole history. But
you probably know the park is on. They pretty much set up their own police. So
right, they were trained by the police, right? Because of
they created their own town. So it's Reedy Creek is actually the town.
Is that in Anaheim?
And then they never released stats about that. So it's very hard actually to know about deaths or crime or anything in the park. They obviously Disney World does not want that information out. I'm sure that's the same at Universal. I'm sure it's the same with all of the companies. But Disney has tight control over that information.
Right,
So
they don't.
This woman got crushed is pretty
I know. Well,
confidential.
there's that. I mean, because I had never heard anything about that until watching these Defunct Land videos. And then I think they opened it like the day after, or like one day after. They didn't even like shut it down after that. They were still like, all right, we're just going to keep it
Oh, absolutely.
going, because that's, sweep it under the rug. And so,
Hopefully
yes.
they closed the exhibit.
Well, no, they didn't. That's what I'm saying. The exhibit, like, they literally just shut it down for a day and started it back up
Oh,
again.
that's good.
And so that wasn't the catalyst that shut it down. Sean, have there been any deaths at Universal that we?
I mean,
Probably.
I probably. I mean, they've probably done the same thing as Disney,
Do
but
they have their own like police force too?
I'm not entirely sure about that. I mean, but I mean, I'm totally 100% sure there's been multiple
Yes,
deaths
it's
there.
crazy.
So,
So Universal
19
doesn't own the town,
There's
but
been 19 accidents and deaths.
Oh,
oh,
well, I mean, there's that. Sarah, have you seen that Class Action Park documentary about that the world's most dangerous adventure park, which was
I
in
did
New
hear about
Jersey?
that.
That one's crazy.
That was really good.
You should definitely check it out. They have like
I think I went there as a child.
I'm sure you did, because there's people have so many stories, and it's like that one's crazy because they've had so many deaths and so many accidents. And part of the problem was everyone designing the attractions had no background in actually designing theme parks or architecture. So at least
it was like a lore thing. Like, I feel like once people found out how dangerous
they
was,
called it Class Action Park.
Like, who can get most hurt here? Like,
yeah, it
definitely was like a wild, like late 80s, like
just the total opposite of Disney.
Daytime. Yeah, like they would just go and try to get hurt.
Well, because if you sue Disney, you're going to get a lot of money. If you sue this place, you're not going to get.
Well, they buried. Someone did die there. A few people died there, and it was definitely negligence on the park's behalf, as opposed to just sort of like an accident. And I don't think they even really won, or they like swept them under the table. And even the Disney lawsuits, there was like a couple of other things, because one of the videos I watched was about a couple of teenagers were like killed during one of those like nightclub, because they had like teen nightclubs too, and then they just opened it again the next day. And
it's a
quick
small world.
turnaround.
People have gotten feet stuck and hands stuck. I mean, even though they're children's rides, anything you can get damage if you're
you can just get out of the boat or
yes.
Craziness at the theme parks. Sarah, what's your favorite Disney attraction or Disney ride? I don't know if I know the answer.
Probably It's a Small World, actually.
Really?
I'm not a big roller coaster person, which is the other reason why I like Disney World, because it's right my level. All the rides are pretty much
not too extreme.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is Magic Kingdom your favorite park?
My favorite park? I like Animal Kingdom and I like Magic Kingdom.
Have you been to the Avatar lands in Animal Kingdom?
I have not been to Avatar.
I want to go to that. It looks so cool.
And the Yeti.
Oh, is it open?
It's open. Yeah, I'm not like a huge fan of the movie, but I think that they did like a super, of course, amazing, like immersive experience.
I was supposed to take a trip there this year with students, and it got canceled.
Oh yeah,
I know.
Because they are open though. I mean, the people who are still going to Disney World is kind of.
Now I'll have to go to LA again.
Fascinating. Yes. once everything's Disneyland is still not open though. They haven't opened it at all.
No, this will be next winter.
Okay, so hopefully
you guys will still have to be in LA. So
I'm not going anywhere. I don't think Sean and I are going anywhere. We've put down our roots here.
I am. Yep. I'm at Universal. It's been a wild time since no movies have come out really this year. So, but yeah, no, I'm still there. We're kind of moving all of our films to next year, or they're being released like in theaters for a few weeks and then being released on PVOD, which is paid video on demand. So we're working on like a bunch of different tactics to just try to get content out there. But yeah, it's like a whole new landscape kind of film and TV and everything. So
and you're on shutdown, right? Isn't LA on shutdown right now?
We just shut down again.
We just shut down.
Mm-hmm. I think pretty much anyone who's been I've been working remotely this whole time. Sean has too, just because everything is crazy. And then they just shut down like all dining and Oh, there's coronavirus is crazy.
Vermont has the
Mhm.
lowest death rate of any state.
Of course. You also have the
It
least. You also have the
does.
least people of any state. So,
No, that's not true. Wyoming has less.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm
They have
That's
sorry.
true.
awful death
Yeah,
rate.
how has it been teaching
Everyone's
during the
dying in
pandemic?
Get your facts straight, Rachel.
I'm so sorry.
Vermont's
So
doing
sorry,
great.
fact checker. Are you teaching in person
I
at
did
all?
teach in person, 6 feet apart with a mask on. You know me, I like being in class. I
Yeah,
don't-
no, it's. Were you
I-
doing like the hybrid thing where like some kids come someday and like some kids
No,
Yeah,
come?
do
everybody
you
came, and
stagger
they all came. I
Oh, they
had
all
no
came.
absences. Everyone was dying to be in class.
I'm
Almost
sure.
all classes are online, so if anybody had an in-person class, everybody wanted to come.
Oh.
It's
What
been
building are you in?
what building? Oh, Lafayette.
Oh, I miss
I missed
Lafayette. I haven't been back. Lizzie and Sean have both been back since we graduated to Burlington, and I just haven't had a chance yet.
A lot.
I
have
was
some
maybe
friends
going to
in
go
the
this
state.
year, but I'm not even going back to Boston because everything. But
No,
I'll have
now
to
is not a good
get
time.
back at some point. But yeah, and then Waterman. That's where we had that. I had the history of animation class, and our Disney and
Yes.
American childhood class was in that same classroom, and Michael Talbot's class.
I still have your projects from that year you guys built those
Do you
imagining.
still have it? I
Yes.
thought we like threw it.
I thought
I
ours was
thought-
immediately thrown out.
I still have a small scar from.
I can't throw any of that stuff out. I have still waiting for the next class to do that.
I think it was so
Oh my
fun.
God.
Like I still have a small scar from the glue gun because I was like,
Oh no.
no, it's totally fine. I don't care. It's a
I
battle
actually
wound.
vividly remember that happening.
I was like, ooh, glue.
What did you guys
Yeah,
design?
Rachel never took a basic safety course and immediately turned the glue gun on and burned herself within 4 seconds of
It's
picking
a
it up.
memory. I have a memory now.
What
We did
was the
Mulan.
reflection?
I'll make a
Do you
man out
remember?
of you, like a traveling obstacle course.
I just found the
What was that?
PowerPoint. I was
What was
looking
that?
over it.
Mulan.
Oh, it was Mulan.
Mulan, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
Okay.
now that in watching those Defunct Land things, they used to have a Hercules a theme, like one of the traveling things was a Hercules, park,
Oh.
whatever. So it wasn't a totally
Yes.
original idea, which we didn't know that at the time.
But you said that failed.
Well, it failed. Yes, it was defunct anyways. So ours
We
is a
just
better
thought
idea.
that we could
project.
get more creative if we weren't doing a ride. We thought a walkthrough gave us
Right.
more free reign.
Because the story that you can tell is, the most important.
And we didn't want to get into the engineering factors of a roller coaster.
Right, because that's what
Because
Action
we
Park
knew we
failed.
weren't qualified. I mean, it would be like,
We would have been like Action Park people.
it
We
would,
would've
yeah,
said,
exactly.
Hey, whatever.
There would be no logistic behind the planning.
Well, I think Avatar Land's the same idea, isn't it? Don't
Is
you just
it?
walk through? I think it's a walk.
Do they not have any rides?
I don't think
It's
so.
called
Which
Pantera,
one?
right? Pantera, the
Avatar.
Avatar Lands.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh,
I don't
It's a
know.
I don't know
walk.
anything about that.
You didn't go when you were there, Rachel?
No, we went to. I haven't been to Disney World since our trip. I went to
Oh,
Disneyland in February,
I see.
and then that was my first time going to the Star Wars land, though, and that was amazing. They have done a fantastic
Oh, was
job.
that?
I think it's
Really?
like they create this whole new city that's like separate from the movies, but it has like all the stuff. And we only got to do one of the rides because there was a new ride that had like an insanely long wait. But I think they've done a really good job. I think that's where they excel, is like creating entire lands and entire because like everything, the drinks have like Star Wars writing, like everything is themed in the Star Wars land. And then
Would you have gone to the Star Wars land if it wasn't for your boyfriend?
So I only saw Star Wars a year ago.
I was just gonna say, this
Yeah,
is a new
cheating. I'm
thing.
cheating. I'm
This
a
is
new
new.
Star Wars fan.
I'm not
No,
a
my-
Star Wars fan either, Rachel. So it's
Well, no, but now
I was not-
I am. Like Baby Yoda. I mean, that's from the TV show, but
That's like right up her alley.
Baby
But
Yoda's cute.
Baby Yoda.
He's
Now he has a
cute.
name. They revealed his. I won't give a spoiler away, but
yeah,
they
I
revealed
just
his
read that.
name.
He has a name?
I did not
Yeah.
grow up with Star Wars. I think I was all Lord of the Rings and didn't even have time for Star Wars in my
That's another.
brain.
I also just saw Lord of the Rings a year ago too.
Yes, I have been trying to get Rachel to watch Lord of the Rings forever, and her boyfriend got her to do it
Those are
within
a
like a
lot
month
better.
of dating.
I liked Lord of the Rings better, but I think The Mandalorian is a fantastic, that's peak Disney, because they're taking this concept that's sort of already there and familiar to fans, and they're taking all the best parts of it, but they created something entirely new. And I think that's really hard to do, because I know that they've had even the past. I haven't seen the most recent 3 Star Wars films, and I've heard that I don't really need to.
I haven't watched The Mandalorian at all.
The Mandalorian is so good because every episode really feels like a cinematic movie in itself. And
I was like, gonna, and then the Baby Yoda thing got too like commodity driven, and I was like, ugh, I'm over it. And
no. Even if you come for Baby Yoda, but stay.
Yeah, that's the only reason why I've watched any of it.
It's really
it was like a minion obsession. Like the way that's the product.
So cute.
Like
it is like a minion.
Sarah probably has thoughts on the commodification of Baby Yoda.
I have a few Baby Yoda.
Oh my god.
That was actually
play it right into their plan.
I know. I don't think I read when it first.
That was not cute, Rachel. I don't know. That one was kind
of. No, I love it. And it has a little Sorgan frog.
Rachel single-handedly like. You buy every product that Disney puts out.
Not every product.
You love a specialty
I like a
Disney
themed specialty product. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
When I
just remember that like bell cup that you got, and I was like, "What is the point of this?" And you were so excited, and you made your friend bring it back for you. It was like one of those. It had like a rose inside.
Yep. I have a friend who has an annual pass at Disneyland. So if they ever release limited merchandise, I was like, hey, can you?
When I was at the archive, all that came in was boxes and boxes of stuff. The company buys all the Disney products that are sold all over the world for their archive.
Because Disneyland Tokyo and Euro Disney, like I forget those even
It was just boxes and boxes of Disney products. That's what's in the archive. It was. They have a huge storage.
Where are the archives? San Francisco?
Burbank. Yes.
At the Disney Studios, of course.
So thanks to Ricky Strauss, our alum, I was able to get into the archive and see all
do they catalog everything, like, by year?
Everything is cataloged. Oh, it's a massive
amazing. Archive. And it's just like on the shelf, like this is a Tokyo Disney hat.
No. They're very paranoid of people coming into the archive because they have like the original watches. They have stuff out on display. And if you're really, really high-paying tourist, you can get into the archive and get a special tour. So like
I was going to say, how accessible are they?
Yeah,
like you have.
Next time, can I join you if you come if you're going to come in the winter and go?
It's like massive security to get in. It's really hard to get in. It's almost as bad as getting into Universal to see Sean. Pretty locked down.
Yeah, they do have pretty intense security there too.
Yeah, no, that is amazing to me, though. They collect everything. So, Rachel, you're getting like the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, it's crazy just how much, the themes that they do with their food, too, like for every holiday. Like,
yes.
I just will see on like Instagram and stuff now. It's like, for only 2 weeks, we have this cupcake. I'm like, who comes up with this stuff?
Oh, have you been watching the food?
I haven't been watching it, but like, something about, I'm not. I
have a student right now who's a huge Disney fan, Frankie. Yes, and he loves Disney stuff, so he keeps me up to date on all the Disney. He was in the Disney University program, and it got
my friend Addie Van Pelt, she did the Disney program, and we're still in touch, and she loved that. She worked at Dino Land.
What is that?
Dino Land is like the latest part. Oh,
the university program. So if you're a university student, you go and live.
It's like an internship,
and you work in the grounds.
Yeah, it's like right after you graduate.
Very fun.
And they assign you to certain locations, and you actually like work in the park and you live there.
You live at Disney World?
Yeah, they have like special apartments.
Disneyland and World.
Oh.
And you
What's Dino Land?
Dino Land is like a sort of not defunct, but it's at Animal Kingdom, and it's like meant for little kids, and it has sort of like a carnival aspect to it. But there's like there's that ride.
I've been to Dino Land.
According to Addie, she said it was
level of rides. It's like
she was pleased. She was like, they didn't have very high customer service satisfaction, so they transferred her there to help them out. Because I think she was working at Avatar Land first. She was there right when it opens.
It's right next to Indiana Jones. So if you go on that ride, then you step out and you end up by.
I went on the Indiana Jones one at Disneyland. I don't know if I went to the one at Disney World.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yeah.
Can I bring in a special fluffy guest?
Sure.
This is good. Oh my God. That's just like a
Oh.
baby Yoda. Look how cute that is.
Yeah.
No,
She is like baby Yoda. She's so big though. She's like massive.
Oh,
this is
Not a
Nomi.
laptop.
She's got the quarantine weight going.
yes.
She did.
Exactly.
Yes.
She was always thick.
Rachel used to live with me and this dog in LA, and her and Sean were buddies. And then I drove her cross country when I moved to New York.
What's her name?
Nomi.
Oh, how sweet.
I have
She's
a
a good
cat.
girl. All right,
Willoughby.
continue. I didn't want to interrupt.
No, how dare, no, it's okay. We can wrap it up. We've been all over.
I think your viewers will appreciate it.
The viewers love the fur friends. So let's end it with, if you could be in any Disney movie, if you could enter that world and be in that universe, which one would it be and why?
Oh my God.
It's a hard question. I have to think about it too.
Enter
Okay.
any Disney film and be
Yeah.
in any part of it?
Yes.
This is hard. Like, my favorite is Sleeping Beauty. I think it has the prettiest illustration, and I've always loved it.
I agree.
And I loved Aurora growing up. It was like the most
Uh-oh,
Oh,
she's
she froze.
Oh,
Well, Sleeping Beauty is Lizzie's answer.
no. Sleeping
Sorry.
Beauty is a great film. It's a beautiful film. Sean, what would you say?
That's a hard one.
I just
but,
came up with it on the fly.
I was
That's
thinking like I loved Ratatouille, and I don't know. I think like
The
being like a
Ratatouille
little
musical.
being like Remy in like
Oh
in
my God,
Paris
yes.
would be so fun. And like I don't know, it's just like I mean, I love cooking in general, and I just love the aspects of being in the kitchen. So I don't know. I would say I would probably be Remy.
That's a good answer.
That's great.
I think for me, I would choose Beauty and the Beast because I always loved Belle growing up because I love reading. Obviously,
I
I
thought
like
you
to
were going to
read.
say the Beast.
No, I would be. I mean, maybe I'd be the Beast, but that library in that castle was always like dream library. And then I'm an introvert, so she's kind of just like alone in this castle. She gets to read whenever she wants. She gets food.
Rachel, you talked about this in our class.
Did I probably did.
As a child.
Yeah,
That's
I've
amazing.
always loved to read, and Belle always just stuck out to me because she loved to read and she was very headstrong and independent. And I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of like Stockholm syndrome with the Beast, but
I'm back.
he ends up being a nice guy.
There she is.
Oh, we missed you. Anyway, your answer was Sleeping Beauty. Sean said
Yes, I was giving a great response, and then
okay,
I got caught
we're moving
froze.
on. Sean said
That's fine.
Remy and Ratatouille, which I thought was an amazing answer.
Adorable.
Sarah, I don't know if I don't really use TikTok, but apparently there's on TikTok people have created a Ratatouille.
My fave.
I heard about this.
and it's actually like
Yes.
very catchy, and I want them to make.
I've heard they're
Wait,
trying
did I-
very hard to get it picked up.
Yeah, people.
Did I
like,
miss Sarah's answer?
no, and it's okay. So that was the Ratatouille musical, and we will end off with Sarah Nielsen's answer. Give it to us.
I have to say Snow White.
Oh,
Would you be Snow White or one of the dwarves?
Oh, I would never be Snow White. I would definitely be one of the animals, I think.
Oh, the animals. Yeah, the dwarves.
I don't think I'd be
hate-
one of the dwarves either. I'd love to meet the Wicked Witch. So,
Right.
you know,
That's- I was gonna say my favorite Disney villain is Maleficent and always has been. So I feel like, and I love. Yeah, I mean, I don't have to
I'd
rant
love to
about it.
meet the villains. I think
Villains,
Yes.
Yes,
everyone
like
would be
Ursula. I'd love to meet her. She's probably got
Yeah.
101 Dalmatians would be pretty good too.
Ooh,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Yeah, that would be
And
good.
Monsters Inc. Like any of the Pixar
Oh,
ones
that
would
would
be
be good,
super fun.
too.
Like to see those worlds.
Oh yeah.
Finding
You're going
Nemo,
to Pixar,
I
though.
don't know if I could do without. Then, but
I'm
Yeah.
biased. I want the Disney classics for sure.
yeah, that's why I
would
said
do.
Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Obviously.
Yeah, I
think
knew-
you're right.
yeah.
And Sleeping Beauty, absolutely. That would be fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
that
to
was
live in the
just always
forest.
like. I
Yes.
always thought it looked like a painting. Like, it was
It's
just
so
such a
beautiful.
beautiful
Yes.
Well,
illustration.
it was based on tapestry, so it was meant to be 2D.
Right.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful film. I agree.
Yeah. But Beauty and the Beast for that library.
And that's
that
what
would
I
be
said. I
nice.
was like, that library alone. And I was like, just to be isolated in a castle with like some people who aren't really people. They're just like talking objects and like, hey, hang out with them, enchanted food. I'm okay with it.
I'm reading this memoir about the Indian Ocean tsunami. This is a shout out for your reading
Oh,
podcast.
okay.
Your reading viewers.
I was like, okay, where is this coming? What's called
That sounds
Wave?
enjoyable.
What?
Wait, this was the one in Japan.
It took me like a week
Wait,
to
was this the
start. 'Cause I was like,
Japanese?
this is not going to be fun.
It's the Japanese tsunami?
No,
The
Indian
Thailand
Ocean.
one.
It's going
Oh,
from Sri
Thailand.
Lanka.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like Thailand, Indonesia, and Sri Lanka. it's just next to me, and I know
No,
this
okay.
is a book
Yes, Sarah,
podcast.
Sarah, what are you reading? What are you? What have you been
Definitely
reading?
not reading that. I've been teaching a class on social movements.
Oh,
So I've
okay.
been reading a lot about different social movements, which has been enjoyable. All
Cool.
new stuff for me.
TikTok.
We had a
Is
big
it-
Black
No,
Lives Matter march in town. You guys missed out. A lot of political action this year.
no, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in Burlington.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yay. Oh, I miss it.
Well, this was wonderful, guys.
This is great.
This was so nice.
So great
We got
seeing
some
you guys.
history at the beginning. We got some craziness towards the end.
Yes.
We got everything.
I'll go back and listen to the beginning.
Yes.
Once it's out.
And I will link the Defunct Land channel below, and Sarah, I'll send it to you because
That is wonderful.
super fascinating
Yeah.
stuff. I feel like I taught you some things, which I didn't expect
You
to happen.
did, absolutely. I'm bringing a whole group out to visit you guys again next year.
Yes, and
too.
I don't. Yes, we'll make sure Sean and I will still.
Tell me when, and I'll come to LA.
That would
Yeah.
be great. Wonderful.
She just invites herself over.
Yeah.
And she re-enrolls at University of Vermont just to
Yes,
go on-
exactly.
I've had dreams where I like pursued a master's there. I mean, I don't think I could ever.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I could live in Vermont again. It just
That campus is like one of my favorite places in the
I
world.
love the
That's
campus,
great.
but Burlington. I mean, compared to LA, like there's just
It's
so much
small.
more.
I've been going back and forth from Brooklyn to Burlington a lot, and I'm like, these are definitely my two favorite places, and I'm always torn between them. And like for now, I'm like not leaving
I feel
Brooklyn.
like,
anytime
having a
soon.
family in Vermont is the ideal. Just
Yeah.
As a younger person, it's. I mean, I don't think I could. Raise
I'm just happy that I am driving distance, and it's kind of like best of both worlds right now because I can get up
I
there on
couldn't even
weekends.
fly in directly. I'd like have
Right.
to fly to Boston and then.
Yeah,
But at
I
some
know.
point, and we'll get together with Todd and Hillary and Tony, and we'll have a reunion.
That would be great.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Sarah, next
Oh, you're invited too. Yeah, Lizzie's coming too.
Hello.
Well, it was wonderful to talk to everybody. Sarah, thank you so much for
Yes,
joining.
Great talking to you.
It was great
Great
talking to
seeing
you,
you.
Lizzie and Sean. As always, great to talk to y'all too.
Yes, it was so neat.
And until next week's episode, stay reading, everybody.
All right.